Watch this. No way!
What do you think? What's your feelings on these bunkers?
I think it's a bit. I just don't think it ever goes well when they try and intervene in a tournament.
You think you should have left them as is? Speaking into the mic, because this might be an intro.
Well, I don't know really. I mean, I listened to the Golf Badgers podcast when they were talking about the flat bottoms in the bunkers and stuff like that. And
Other podcasts are live available.
Is it a Hoylake thing or is it a general open
No,
thing?
it's not a Hoylake thing. It's just for the open thing.
No, that's what I mean. So if they've decided that we need the bunkers to play this way, was it as a reaction to we need to make Hoylake a bit more difficult? I don't know. It's weird.
Are we recording? Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills, and we are not live from Hoylake. We are recording a pre-recorded podcast.
The RNA do not allow you to say that you are live from Hoylake.
I'm joined by Sam Williams.
Thank you for having me on the podcast again, Tom.
No, it truly is my pleasure. And 5 Pete. 4? How many times have you been on the pod?
Might be 4 now. I'm always quite surprised when you ask me to do it again.
James every day.
By popular demand.
Why do we call him James every day?
We call him James every day because he calls Sam Williams at least once a day.
Yeah, he's like,
So
he's
he's
like
James
a radio
every day.
show to me.
So it was James
gets
Day
a
for a
private podcast
And
once
then-
a day where he rings me.
And then Sam says to me, oh, bloody hell, James is calling me here today. James Day. James who? James Day. James every day. So James
Well,
every day.
Are we
Welcome
going to be
to the
okay with
podcast.
wind on the mic? Because we are
Yeah, I think we're
sat in
going.
the fan zone.
No, we're not. We're sat in
Currently-
the media centre, which is the only place we're allowed to pod.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We're sat in the media centre, just right to the 16th fairway and left of it and right of 18.
Funny enough, though,
Underneath
even
the
though we are
massive
sat in the
bunch of-
media centre, I think the fan zone is the best place to be, including, well, everywhere I've been. You know, I think it's better. This screen is
We've
incredible.
been ligging for a couple of
This
days.
is the
No,
best.
this
This is the
screen-
best fan zone I think I've found.
After last
Yeah.
year, I became an expert in screens, and this thing, I'm trying to figure out what that might cost. But the quality of it and the
It's
over
like 1,000-inch high
it's
res.
absolutely mad.
4K. James, you mentioned screens there. I'm going to start this podcast with a very simple question. How does this Open compare with the last for you personally?
Well, it's completely different. I've actually walked a few holes, been on the golf course.
And you're not bladdered, which is a difference.
Well, yeah, last year's Open was quite stressful for me, but there you go. I bit off more than I could chew. I lost my shirt almost, and
The shirt off your
luckily
back.
we've got a few shirts in the warehouse. But yeah, it was a bit stressful last year. But I still think we'll look back on it fondly.
Let's quickly put
But
some
less
colour
about-
on this.
yeah.
Let's put so last year you ran the Santa Clubhouse at Scores that we all stayed in. Fabulous little location just up from the RNA Clubhouse there.
Finest rosé garden in
Yeah,
all
it was a
of golf.
wonderful event last year, though, wasn't it?
It was a lesson in life. I mean, I got very overexcited. I think sometimes when you get to do things like this, you're like, oh, so we've got a hotel right by the 18th green of
I
the
mean,
old
I'd like to
course.
say that you learnt, but you ordered up 2 pallets of rosé to come to the
I have
one
learned.
this year.
I
So why do we
definitely
get
have
2
learned.
pallets of rosé this year?
Well, I think we're going to run out, so it wasn't enough, clearly. I mean, I need to go back the other way. It's this year we're doing something which is much more manageable. It's been quite nice, hasn't it? Just
I think it's been lovely. I think that's feeling like a different place because I've, you know, just outside of your own personal experience, I would say the Open at Royal Liverpool is different to St Andrews in so much as lots of people are staying in Liverpool or further afield. Whereas when you're at the Open at St Andrews, you were almost locked into that location. So therefore, that's great because you're in the hubbub of it, whether or not you're on the course watching golf or you're in a local bar. The other side of that coin is that you can't escape that, which is a problem I also found. But you can't get away from the hubbub of the Open Championship. And last night we went for a bit of dinner and we had a few drinks and it was very nice. And I didn't feel like there was 250,000 people around.
No.
me. So,
well, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? After dark at the Open,
yeah.
you know, because most people are probably staying a little bit of distance away, and then there are the people that are actually close to the golf course, and maybe, you know, a high portion of those might be players or people that are involved in the golf business, and it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting mix after dark at the Open, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And
There's an
yeah.
article in that, isn't there? After dark at the Open.
I
That's
think-
just a
I think
great
they're
article.
saying that nothing good happens past midnight. So I think the same applies to 9 p.m. at the Open. I feel like it's an early curfew, and
Yeah.
you've got to really graft it. I think even here, which is setting up to be quite a good spectators course. We've written a few pieces. Big shout out to some of the written pieces we put on our blog recently, the first 30 from Little Eye, but also our first sort of five key takeaways from day one is you can actually get some pretty good vistas, but you've really got to hustle to see a lot of golf. Let's not get away from that.
I do think we need to firstly apologise for this the lacklustre start to the daily pods, because on the Thursday, the day one of the tournament, we didn't pod, but
that was not through anything other than happenstance
and being monumentally busy.
You prompted me to think of something then. What is your strategy for watching golf at the venue?
Really
because
question.
You do that thing where you try and get yourself in a good position to see a shot. I mean, I'm a bit of a sucker for trying to get in the right spot on the tee, because I can have a look in all their bags and I can really see the flight of the ball and everything.
Right. It's really
but
hard.
then there's that thing of like, oh, do I really want to watch them putt, or should I just get to the next tee?
Ramsey just nearly canned it.
And, I think should I jump up to the group in front?
Under.
I think ultimately, to answer your question, James, I feel personally very invested in Richie Ramsey's golf. Like Richie Ramsey.
It's good that he's with Matty Jordan.
And he's playing with Matty Jordan, which I think is the great storyline through this Open Championship as a boyhood member of Royal Liverpool. We were there for the first tee shot. We followed them around for those 18 holes. When we came through, I want to say, kind of close to where we're sat now, which is just around 16, it was like, wow, this is starting to get busy.
We're in the media centre, Sam.
Sorry, keep forgetting where I am. I think going out early and seeing what you can, and not feeling like you need to be on the shoulder of somebody watching golf shots relentlessly and coming to peace with that is a good thing. The course does set up quite nicely for fans. I think the grandstands is absolutely where it's at. The one at the back of 6, you can really kind of get a sense of not just occasion, but the sort of flow of the round, because you can watch them play 5, 6, 7 and 8, and I think that kind of gives you a good lens. It's kind of like that stand at the back of the 7th and 11th at the old course.
I kind of feel I don't mind following a group, but you need to come to peace with, if you follow a group, that you're not going to see every shot, and you need to live it via the atmosphere.
Yeah,
it's like you're not following it to see every single shot.
But at the end of today, you get to the end of really watchable golf on the golf course. I mean, it is that would be an exhausting day to spend the whole day really getting into positions where you can watch golf shots.
Yeah, I
think being present
you got
is
the same
really
amount
key.
of people for half the amount of golfers tomorrow.
Isn't it strange? I've noticed less
crazy.
people. I don't know whether this is just bias, whatever.
Few people
who stood around, whatever. But I noticed less people holding iPhones at golfers. Don't know. I feel like there's a real big sort of lesson in being present there, about just enjoying where you're at, watch the golf, walk on to the next shot, rather than feeling like there's a need to capture it on your iPhone. But we digress. We will be coming on to a giveaway. I don't think Cookie Jar do giveaways particularly well. I don't think we do giveaways, period. But we will be doing a giveaway later on this podcast.
Yeah, I can't believe you've gone in so early.
Why are we doing later on this podcast? A great question. Well, I suppose it keeps people listening to this podcast for a little bit longer. However, I think we've got
what do you reckon went through his brain that he just suddenly dived into a give-away when we're in the middle of a monologue?
I think we've got a signpost that there's a giveaway coming.
Okay.
Because otherwise, how do you keep the listener on tenterhooks, apart from scintillating content, which this 30-minute podcast promises not to
You might
deliver.
want to edit this out, but I think the problem here is that, you guys are really wrestling with that thing of turning into a business.
Too many cooks.
Don't ever
let's
say
put
you
some
might
colour
want
on
to
this.
edit
It is Friday morning. It's day 2. Overnight we had Lambrecht, who was leading, an amateur. As we stand, he is putting for par on the first hole. Looks like 4-footer, and he's missed it.
Holy moly.
What do you feel about
Well, I want to start with the
Open?
bunkers. I want to start with the bunkers as agenda item number 1.
Do what you want to do. Let's go. Bunkers.
I don't know. I don't know about an amateur. Just on that, but I don't know about an amateur leading the Open. I mean, it does happen, doesn't it? And then they usually fizzle out. But I think
Do you think that's just like nerves?
But the reason I'm saying this is that I don't think that's what Matt Jordan. People are talking about Matt Jordan as if it's this sort of Cinderella story, which it is. But Matt Jordan, I think, believes that he can win the Open. I think he's
Matt Jordan knows this course really well.
I walked the course with him yesterday. He's cool. He knows what he's doing around here. I mean, I don't think yesterday was a great score for him. I think he's fully confident that he can shoot 5 under around here.
I'm fairly confident. I'm happy to be to be absolutely raked over the coals by the Royal Liverpool members. But I think he was like +7 here.
He was +7
when he turned pro.
Yeah, he was.
So like to hold that around Royal Liverpool. Granted, it's not
Doesn't
always
mean he
in
was
this
shooting
condition.
65 on every Saturday medal.
But it means he's very, very capable
they're
of shooting the 65.
They're talking about the
Liverpool.
WhatsApp groups and stuff like that, and it's pretty much a monthly occurrence that somebody pipes up and says, "Oh, Matt shot 62 the other day." And
Yeah.
But he's right in the mixer. Like he's posted a fantastic. You mentioned amateurs. We've got to circle back on this. I think the world of medics, engineers, doctors, etc., being great amateur golfers and turning up and competing in these events is past. I mean, Lamprecht's a world-class player. He's in a phase
you say
of his
that,
life
but you're
where he
forgetting
will
Dara Garrity.
Dara Garrity. He's one of the great amateurs of the game, but he's not playing in the Open Championship.
He is a doctor.
And he'll be listening to this podcast, and he will be absolutely
He's
loving the
thrilled to
fact that
bits,
you've name dropped him.
Thrilled to bits.
So I think it's interesting. Right, I'm gonna put a bit of structure around this. Big news today on a couple of outlets. The bunkers have changed slightly in terms of their appearance within the bunkers. What I believe the RNA have done, and I'm happy for both of you to fact check me on this. They basically just raised the sand level on the perimeter of the bunker and put some concaving in to the tune of about 1.5 revettes.
One revette.
Does that
that's
mean
what
they've all of a
come out
sudden meant you can putt out of these bunkers? No, they have not. But I think there was a couple of shots yesterday that were, maybe it's an indictment of the social media world we're living in, where you're seeing Finau chipping back with the blade of a sand wedge, or Rory leaving it in when he's playing sideways. They've thought, actually, maybe we need to soften the approach with this.
See,
But I know you've got a great counter argument, and I'm fully on board with that, Tom.
This is where I stand on it, right? Like the pros these days, they get, especially in America, you go into a fairway bunker and they can just hit the green. It's not a hazard. I've heard on broadcasts, caddies and players talk about, oh, let's leave it in that bunker, it's a good leave. Bunkers were designed to be hazards. Tiger Woods in 2006 avoided all the bunkers. He won the Open. The question that Hoylake is asking is, can you avoid a bunker?
I think that's a really good point, and I hadn't looked at it that way. But there is this other thing, which is why did they do that? Did they feel like Hoylake needed a bit more? Did they feel that they needed to just... Is it something they want to do for all Opens? Is it just how they think pot bunkers should be? I mean,
well, clearly not. They're not going to do it for all Opens because they've already changed their mind on how
I'd say
they
it's
do it.
low-hanging
But
fruit
it
to
introduces
make it
a level
harder.
of randomness to it, doesn't it? It's like you can if you've hit a good shot and it just drops into the bunker, then you're up.
But let's pull it back to John Marr's point. If
Here's
it's
a point,
unfair,
right?
it's equally
Here's
unfair.
a point that I think is really, really prudent, right? Is that, like you say, golf is truly fucking random, right? It just so happens that Fleetwood yesterday didn't get any bad bounces. He didn't go in and end up being plugged in a face.
Well,
a golf tournament is played over 72 holes. So if you happened to not have a bad lie or bad whatever yesterday, you are infinitely better positioned today because now they've equalised the field.
And I think that's where you see the Open Championship. Is what I'm not saying we've got a bad leaderboard, but as I look at it, we've got Harman, Fleetwood, Homer. Okay, 2 household names. Sharma, Stewart, Lamprecht, Rosner, Minwoo Lee, etc. I'm not saying
But
that's
it's a
a poor
72-hole
leaderboard,
tournament. It's not
but it
an
really
18.
does. And to your point, Tom, you're spot on. Is it does blend out? Like, people are going to find the sand.
Well,
I feel like if you've changed the conditions day to day, you've stacked the odds against those that were in the bunker
That did
day
badly
one.
day
Well,
one.
and
Yeah.
actually, this might be an interesting competition question, because if anyone can name a time where a governing body has decided to do something different with the golf course in these situations where it's ended well,
we can't do that as a comp because it's so ambiguous. But you remember when the USGA did it?
It's usually a disaster when they, there was the thing at Birkdale where on that Saturday where they made the short par 4 drivable, but they were, they could get it on there easily with 3 woods. Maybe there's a case to be made for saying with the Open Championship, this is how the course setup is, and that's that.
I suppose the killer question when you strip it all back is, are you trying to identify as the best golfer, or are you trying to create a variable playing condition for the players day to day? And I think in those questions you've got things like 17. They could push 17 up. I think that would be great to see that played for 90 yards, 95 yards, something like that. But also, at the same day, you do introduce a level of variable randomness to the whole thing.
But playing a hole up isn't like changing the equation, because when you talk about like randomness over 72 holes, he's just like rolling a dice. You know, like Fleetwood happened to not be plugged in the face. Matty Jordan on, was it 11 or 10?
11. He was buried.
11. He had the worst lie in a greenside bunker. That if he'd played that exact same shot today, he probably would have been up and down.
He's one shot
but
better.
but it's a huge debate because, you know, actually, with the way the bunkers were yesterday, the better shots end up with the worst position. Because if, you know, say if Matt Jordan's hit it, I didn't see where that shot landed, but say if he landed it on the green and then he was just really unlucky and it came backwards and it went just down the face of the bunker.
Okay, but look at it like this, right? Rory left it in on 18 with his second shot, right? He chose to go for the green. He wanted a putt for eagle, right? He could have played that as a three-shotter.
Yeah.
And, you know, chipped on from, you know, he could have played it well right at the bunkers and had two putts for birdie, but he chose to take, that's a choice that he made.
I agree with
knowing
you.
That the bunkers
I
are
agree
penal.
with you there, and I also think that the sort of modern obsession with fairness is one of the things that's really crept in, and, you know, people want perfect lies wherever they are, and they want bunkers to be a certain way. But I also think,
and that's why the
if you
just
take pot bunkers on a links course as a thing in their own right, you know, they're pretty deep. They've got quite a serious face on them. Usually, it's a really tricky shot. So they are a hazard, and maybe you just don't need to mess with it, and you don't need to increase.
I do agree. I understand, and I agree with you. But then don't flatten them in the first place.
Yes, I think that's the fair point. I think front right of 8. Now I've stood in that bunker and I've been in the middle of that bunker and had a decent lie. And I'm telling you, that is a really hard golf shot to move the ball forwards towards the pin and escape the hazard.
And that's the great. And that's the great thing about the Open.
Media centre's come alive all of a sudden.
From a spectator standpoint, I would rather see them hit a great bunker shot to a difficult pin. You know, we get to see them hit bunker shots in the Open that we don't normally get to see them hit. You know, normally they're in massive bunkers with a massive green, and they've got to hit these little touchy ones.
Let's also be honest about this. They haven't turned these into fucking serial bowls. They've done a small amount of
it's a
of
very
raising,
small
very
lifting.
Very small. You're not going to be. These aren't going to be rolling into the middle. They're just giving them like 2 feet.
You were there with them, and
or
they
a
just
foot and a
literally
half.
changed the raking technique.
I wasn't
right?
there. They're just raising it like a revet. So it's like, it's not like.
Were you there at 3 a.m.?
So it's not
Not
like
there
they're
at 3 a.m.
It's not like they're going to be rolling to the middle of the green. They're just giving them a little bit more help, and they're not going to be like. So it's not like they're.
I think it's the right call.
changing.
I think
Will
it's
it
the right
change
call.
the
Do you think it's the
champion
right
we're going
call?
to get?
It would have been if they'd have left them how they were for the whole tournament. It would have been a big thing. It's the right call, definitely, because now it's done. You know, it's a little experiment that maybe didn't work out. It's the same for everyone, whatever.
Yeah, but
that's the nature of golf.
here's a counter.
But if you're Rory or Jordan, you've had your
love your
fingers
idea.
burnt.
But can't you have a little experiment with the members for 3 weeks before?
Exactly,
or,
but I don't. You know,
I mean, I know it's different.
we
but
don't need to get into that. I just think
this isn't criticism. This
No,
is
it's
a
just
really difficult thing to run a championship with the history that goes behind the Open, going back to 1860. With, let's face it, a pretty small handful of golf courses. There's not that many, and protecting the relevance of courses like Royal Liverpool, which, let's be honest, stacks up as a championship venue. Forget the bunker stuff; it stacks up.
Yes.
You know, and trying to keep them relevant is a fear. Of course it is, because we don't want to see people win at 35 under.
And the R&A
making it 8,000 yards as well.
Exactly.
The R&A have done such a good job of not doing crazy setups. You know, they've let the course speak for itself. They've said to themselves, look
at 17,
the weather conditions are going to be the weather conditions.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back to yesterday morning, when this course was bone dry a few weeks ago, and then it's rained a lot and it's soft. Wednesday night, all anyone was talking about was how they're going to burn this place up, but they actually haven't.
I think the world's too quick to criticise any error in today. You know, let's not forget 17. I think as a championship golf hole stacks up. I think there's real reason to take your hat off to both the R&A and the club and Martin Ebert for keeping the 10th hole as a par 4. That's a real triumph. Like yesterday, following the groups round and watching Matty Jordan, Brandon Grace and Richie Ramsey
I'd push back on that.
They were fiddling around in their bags. They weren't sure what to hit when it came down to the moment, whether they were going to hit 3-wood and lay up short of that ridge,
what is par,
or whether they were going to. Well, hang on, it's not about par. The whole point is.
Well, you just said it's about changing the par.
Well, so what they could have done. So for context, sorry, we're going too fast here. for context, the 10th hole at Royal Liverpool, played as the 8th, is a par 5 for the members. It plays at about 500, 510 yards. The amateur player does not have to worry about the ridge that sort of cuts across that fairway where the fairway snakes round it. We talked about it in our film. Now, they could very easily, when you're stood on that tee, there's 50, 60, 70 yards behind where they could bury a box and they could put a tee back there and they could protect it as a par 5, and the players would slam driver up there and then they would hit a long iron into that green and they would still play it as a par 5. Yes, you could argue it's a par 5 green. I don't know what that quite means exactly. However, they could keep it as a par 5 and protect it as a par 72, but they've maintained the box and kept the architecture and the strategy involved in that hole the same and said it's a par 4.
I agree with that, but
and
it
I think that's a triumph,
matter,
and it 100% needs to be applauded to the tournament organisers, the R&A, Martin Ebert, and the club for protecting that, because it's a better hole watching them fiddle around in the bags with long irons, 3-woods and drivers.
I've enjoyed
it's strategy. You know?
I've enjoyed watching them hit shots into greens this week. You know, there's loads of strategy to it. There's massive amounts of risk reward in a really nuanced way. You know, it's not black and white in any way. You know, you see people hit shots and they get a bit lucky. You see people hit shots and they're not so lucky. Every shot that you watch here, there's a degree of jeopardy to it, which is very apparent. And that's great. I love watching that.
As things stand, Brian Harman sits at the top of the leaderboard. I'm going to put a shout out here and say he might be, don't know Brian Harman well, a contender for our worst, I think that's an even better point, the worst Open Championship winner in the modern era. Discuss.
Well, why are you throwing? It's just not very nice, is it?
I'm not sure he would be a great Open Championship winner. I think there's a lot of people that would subscribe to that view.
Well, he's
James,
not going
to
be a fan's favourite, but on the other hand, given the conversation that we just had, this is a true test of golf, and if he wins, he wins. You know, as you know, I'm all about a bit of showmanship and a bit of flair, but if that's what happens, that's what happens. And he wouldn't be my favourite winner, probably just behind Stuart Sink. But you know, Matty Jordan.
Was Sink that bad a winner? Was he really that bad?
It's just a shame.
It's not him being a winner, it's who he beat.
Yeah, it's what happened. The story. He took away the Cinderella story, didn't he?
But
I wonder if he sat down with Stuart
Sink.
We've got
people chiming in with drink-related comments saying, "Does Justin Rose like rosé? Does Stuart Sink like the drink?" There's any number of those. If you have any better ones, please do send them in to us. Adrian Morong likes the plonk. Was another one we just heard. The media centre seems to be alive with bawdy golf chat.
Yeah, I thought this was a place where you could get some privacy.
I know, in the rarefied atmosphere. There's a lot of smoothing out to happen in that leaderboard, and we'll be looking at something different come Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, we're
take.
halfway through day 2. I mean, the cut looks like it's coming in at +2 at the moment. If anything, with the weather, I'd say it's a little bit windy. I can't see it moving much from +2.
But okay, so if you said, Matt Jordan, you know this course like the back of your hand, you play it week in, week out, and you're going to play 4 rounds and just take away the fact there's the Open and the crowds and everything, if you took his spread, you'd probably say he's going to shoot in the 60s most of the time.
Yeah.
And he looks cool. Here he is now.
Ooh,
he looks totally cool and relaxed.
Do you think, so you've played some decent level golf. Does the course being set up for a championship make a big difference?
Well, it makes a big difference. I looked at a few of those tee shots today where, you know, the tee's miles back and you're almost looking at it thinking, you know, it's quite a big, it's good hit to get to the fairway.
Yeah. Some of those par 5s.
And these guys, it doesn't bother them. I can't remember. It was the person that was playing with. It's one of the people that was playing with Dustin Johnson, and, you know, par 4, a little bit into the wind, 482 yards, and he hit 3-wood. That wouldn't cross my mind.
No, exactly.
Well, the 10th has been the guys have been hitting a 3-wood to lay up short of that ridge. It's been playing downwind this week, but still that hole's 520 odd yards.
Yeah,
it's just not in the DNA of the amateur golfer.
And it's the quality of golf and the quality of short game that sort of feeds all the way back down through. So there's this level of confidence, which is, you know, even if I can't get to the green, I'm a brilliant pitcher, and, you know, I'm probably going to get up and down.
Exactly. We just saw these are short pods, I will remind you both. We just saw a little clip of Victor Hovland up there. I want to talk a little bit about dress code at the Open Championship, which I think is a great segue into some of the dress codes we've seen on and off the golf course. Hovland or Wallace for the worst dress today? I'm not out to attack Jay Lindenberg on this one.
I haven't seen Hovland today, but he has got a history. Oh, here he is now. He's got a history of wearing rascal wear, hasn't he?
Well, I think Jay Lindenberg have doubled down on it. Since he said, I don't care, I just wear any old shite because they pay me, I feel like Jay Lindenberg going, right, let's have him.
No, Matt Wallace definitely wins that competition.
I think
that outfit from Matt Wallace is unforgivable, but
he looks like an Eton mess.
I've also got a bit of an issue. I've also got a bit of an issue with these hoodies because, we sell hoodies at Sounder Golf, but when I was watching Brandon Grace yesterday, and you've got the two cords hanging down, a bit flappy, movie about
and the hoodie moves over
and
your
the
left
hoodie
shoulder.
when it's windy and it flips around. I don't understand the hoodie in golf, and I don't understand
you wouldn't
why
play
people
without
are
a
doing
glove because it's cooler, would you?
I'd say hoodies in golf are like lifestyle
Freddie
wear.
Couples.
I don't
Exactly.
mind wearing hoodies. Like I quite like wearing hoodies. Like James has been taking
No,
the piss
you're
all week because I'm like
you're
2 hoodies.
What do you think of his hoodie that he's
hoodies
wearing
a
right
day,
now?
a day, man.
Jay, what do you think of his hoodie that he's wearing
But
right
I wouldn't
now?
wear one on a golf course.
I quite like it. It's obviously a very high quality item, but for me it's a bit S&M-y.
Well, I think it's a good chance to thank Peter Millar.
Huge thank you to Peter Millar.
So before the event, we'd spotted the little, I think they're pop-over, pull-over hoodies, which are like, it's like
I've been reliably.
it's like a
you'll love
Brare's
this one.
hat
You'll
from
love
being
this one.
cashmere.
And perhaps being in the clothing industry, you can help me out. I've been reliably informed they're 1 micron away from cashmere.
Yeah.
One micron.
So I hear
It's like
well, here
Callaway
then, it's still not
technology. They've
cashmere.
pushed it as far as...
But
the fabric's unreal. I mean, it's like a great little jar
it's a
logo on the
super sexy
sleeve.
merino wool is
We've
what it
also
is.
got the crown crafted polos that have got like... I mean, the Perth's a great range from Peter Millar. It's like the staple of like you go into a golf club and you get the Perth. That's what you get, the sort of the great polo shirt. They wash
Yeah,
well.
but
You screw them up
hang
in the
on,
bag.
we
But
all
the crown
know-
crafted's got slightly firmer collar, slightly deeper neck.
Thing is, we all know Peter Millar do good gear. It's the rascal gear I want to talk about.
But that's the thing,
we
isn't
want
it?
to talk about the Peter Millar gear because
you've
it's
got
like
a few
high.
brands out there who are doing nice, good quality
Classy
clothing
stuff.
and then you've got brands that have sort of, I think, gone into this
Do
thing
you-
of like it's all about impact.
Yeah, do you think
I'm
that's
just
what
going
it
to put
is?
Matt Wallace in that all white outfit
Yeah,
with the pink. It's just
Because
like
Jay Lindenberg, it's like we need headlines, whereas Peter
And don't
Millar
forget,
stuff, it's like
people-
just cool. Like, did you know?
loudmouth trousers sold.
So
The
I don't
trousers that
think-
John
Have you
Daly
seen
wears
John
sell.
Daly's trousers
Yeah.
today?
I might be corrected on this, but like Peter Millar, their players, they just kill it on service. So I didn't know this. Like, friendly with some of the guys that work there, they just kill it on service for the guys, and they just deliver great product and turn it around fast. And if their luggage gets lost, like you get it within 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's like, how is that humanly possible? However, we obviously had a bit of crown crafted gear, which is just superb. I think that complemented with, and I live in the slacks, James, the Sounder slacks on a pair of FootJoy
Of
Premiers.
course, this feels like an ad.
With a
doesn't it?
pair of match play socks.
We've never had an
That
ad.
is
This feels
4
like an ad.
adverts in one foul sentence that I think is one of the finest looks in the
Here
game
we
today.
go. Sounder do good socks, but how do you feel about match play socks?
Oh, I like the match play shots, and I've
Have
got
you
your
seen-
cookie
have you
show
seen
ones.
everybody-
I realise this might be controversial, but
We
I'm not.
dipped
I'm
our
just
toe
not,
in the hosiery market
just
recently
not-
and
I'm-
sold out before we had to
I'm
advertise
not a
them.
long sock guy.
You know,
You know,
I'm
the
a
long sock thing. I
Have you
like
seen them all out
everyone's
on
really
11?
into it.
Everyone marshalling on 11 is from Birkdale, and they're all wearing the Birkdale long socks.
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah, yeah.
No way.
Yeah,
Niche.
yeah. It's really niche.
Niche,
Yeah.
But there's some funny get-ups on there. I think there's that age-old question: if you come to a golf event, do you wear trainers or golf shoes? You know, do you do logo bingo or do you wear something more comfortable? I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is.
Do you wear a collared polo? You know, like do you have to dress like you're on a golf course if you're watching a golf event?
Here's a
No,
quote.
I think the answer is no, but I also think it just doesn't matter. I mean, it's it just depends where you are and what you're doing, doesn't it? I think it's quite nice. Like if it was boiling hot here today, it would be really nice just to be here in a pair of swim shorts and a
Budgie
t-shirt.
smugglers.
I think.
just-
I think you should always
in the media centre.
You should
Yeah.
always behave, and I think this extends to every sporting event. You should always behave like if someone got injured, you could immediately step in for the field.
That's
You
interesting.
know, so if you go into a rugby game, you should pretty much be ready to play. If you go if you go into a golf tournament,
You should be raised like, oh,
Well,
Matt
can you
Wallace has
imagine?
pulled out. I'm going to have to
Yeah.
step up and
You're
play
in the-
now.
You're in the front row of the stand. Oh, Matt Wallace. Oh, my back. This pink T-shirt's hit my back. And there's like, oh Christ, can anybody play? I can.
I'm ready.
I'm ready to go.
I've got a Hughes top on. I've
they're
got
not-
logos all
But
over
I tell you
me.
what,
But if
what
that
we-
happened, and you've
Premiers
got a round
Plastered
shirted
in
T-shirt
people
on, they're going to be like, "Oh, I'd love
Yeah,
you
but
to play, but you can't." You've
What
got
we've
round-
seen, what we have not seen enough of at this Open is wacky outfits. I mean, our friend James has just gone to the Ashes today with his son dressed as a duck, and they used to see that at the Open.
There was a
haven't seen much of
dinosaur
that at all.
yesterday
Was
that
there?
said "Roars for Roars."
Okay,
Yeah,
well, that's
There was
good, isn't
a
it?
gigantic
Tip of the cap
dinosaur.
to that gentleman.
Can we have a quick chat about 17?
Yeah, I think we can. There's a wonderful article that Charlie wrote for us on our blog talking
So-
about the first 30 shots. It stands up as a championship
We now
hole.
we now have data to say that it played the ninth yesterday. It played the ninth easiest golf hole.
Yeah. Well, it's a nothing hole until it's not, isn't it?
3.09 or something like that. So a smidge. James Bledge called it a smidge over par. Not much.
Yeah. And a lot of that is
all the
driven by
hype.
Herbert, who made
Made
six.
six.
You know, so
All
And,
the
you know,
hype
to be
was
fair, it
about-
will bring drama. I mean, if it gets a bit bouncy, even if it doesn't, but the wind gets up, and you've got to play that one to close it out, that's not going
it's
to
going to
be...
get
Do you like
squirrely.
Well, from a personal perspective, I hate it. It triggers every single bit of
See, I like it.
anxiety I have.
That's what makes it great as a championship golfer.
Yeah.
Right?
It's what's the yardage? 130.
Tops.
Yeah, 136 I think is
And
the
what's the
max
prevailing
it
wind?
goes.
Into.
He-
But it deviates. It can be a little off the left, a little off the right.
I think
Yeah.
it's into off the right is the proper prevailing, so it's down.
I think it's a very scary hole, but I think for these guys, as good as they are with their wedges, it's pretty. You know, unless if they mess one up, they've got a serious problem. But I mean, in that way, it's a bit like 17 at Sawgrass, isn't it? Where, you know, Sawgrass is that hole's easy if you always go for the middle of the green. The only thing that makes it
Yeah.
difficult is the flag.
Yeah. We had a chat with Richie Ramsby's caddy yesterday, and he was like, "Yeah, little knockdown 9 to the back left," and I'm assuming that's what they're going to do all week.
But
Which
if the
would,
wind
by
gets up, it
definition,
changes.
make the front left flag, because you can't really putt to it from the back left. So the front left flag is going to be the hardest flag they have.
When I walked around yesterday afternoon, there was so many flags that there's just no way you could go for.
Yeah.
Well, it's the only thing they
Like
could
the
do.
one
There
on
was no
3
wind.
was
They had to bury
absolutely
them.
ludicrous.
You know, and it's very interesting watching them hit those shots and seeing what they. You know, it's always this thing of like, okay, well, is that what they were planning to do, or is that what just happened? But
And are they a bit more opened up now? I don't know. We're going to close this podcast with our first ever giveaway. Charlie, another wonderful blog piece you wrote was a ranking of the staff tour bag. James, before we go into that, where do you stand on the limited edition player staff bag?
well, I've managed to wean myself off my addiction to buying them, which is good. I actually
Have you got
sold
loads
one
of
the
you?
other day. Yeah, I went through a spell of just like munching them up, and I think there's been some good ones this year. I think they came off the boil for a long time. I particularly like the tailor-made one they did for LACC with all the neon on it.
Oh,
That was quite good.
I thought with the sunrise one.
But what I would
Boulevard.
really love to see is just a beautiful leather bag. Beautiful leather tour
Thing is,
bag.
the players won't even carry it because it's the caddies that have got to carry it. Be like, yeah, let's get some heavy leather. Like,
Yeah, but
like
it's
an
not
old
heavier, I
football.
don't reckon, than what they've got at the moment. Maybe it is,
But
but
I sort of joke a little bit about this with, you know, we're very lucky to be looked after by TaylorMade, and joke a little bit with them about like each major one and the different types that come out and whether they're good or bad. Hands down, TaylorMade one, I must admit, and then that is not by the jar opinion. That is the opinion
Yeah.
of the people, based on empirical data and a very thought-provoking article by Charlie. And we will be giving one away, James.
when I was walking around the course earlier, I said, and I was on my own, so I was having my usual sort of little fantasies inside my head. But I don't know who it was, but somebody had a stand bag, and I thought to myself, if I qualified for the Open, what
Mackenzie.
bag would I bring?
Pencil.
No, because you need to be able to get stuff in it. I think it'd probably be a Ping Hoofer. I'd like to go for a really old Ping Hoofer because it's got loads of room in it. You kind
The
of
Lynx
Other
Masters
stand bags are
The
available.
Lynx Masters are like not too far away, are they?
which ones?
The Titus, the Lynx Masters, they're not
Yeah,
far
they're
from a
nice,
Ping
they're
Hoofer.
nice. I mean, Robert Rock playing in US Open qualifying at Walton Heath with a Jones bag
I thought that
with
was
no
quite
caddy
good.
was
Yeah.
one of the biggest
And no
flexes
hat.
ever. Yeah, I mean, like you said,
Yeah,
you know, he's
ticking a lot of boxes.
He's put 2 fingers up to the hat sponsor
Do
because
you know
he's
what
got
you
a
don't see?
magnificent head of hair. And
Yeah.
I think
I'm gonna
power
spend
to
50
him.
grand a year on letting my mad head of hair run
Do you know what
through.
do you know what you don't see? You don't see much Lynx and King stuff on the tour players, do you?
no, I think
Like
it's
such
more
an
of a
elite
niche country
brand. You
club
don't-
band.
yeah,
So
but
I don't want to give James Day a soundbite on Lynx and Kings.
Okay.
So, for the listeners to this podcast, how can they win a tailor-made staff tour bag from the Open
Well, we've gone through
151st
We've
Open
gone through very,
Championship?
very, very many iterations of the questions we could have. Like as niche as how many surnames of Open winners have a Z in it. we've gone a bit kind of weird, but I think we settled on a fairly simple one, which was
simple if you know the answer. It's like all good
which
questions.
was an amateur was leading the Open after day one. You know, let's all live the amateur dream.
And Hoylake has a massive history with amateur champions.
Who are the amateur champions of the Open?
There are 3 of them.
If you know them, you can email us at Cookie Jar.
No, they email us at contact
at
cookiejargolf.com. However, they must be signed up to our newsletter to be in the prize, and we will announce that next week on a podcast.
How many are there? Do you know?
How many what?
3.
There
There are 3 amateur winners of the
yeah.
Claret Jug.
Okay.
So, if you know the answer to that question, email us at contact at cookiejargolf.com. You must be signed up to our newsletter.
We
if
will
you
be
haven't signed up, you
cross-referencing.
go on our website and you fill out the form. I would highly recommend you go and visit one of our blog articles while you're up there, watch a few videos, and
Buy some merch.
and buy some merchandise and do everything else you'd want to do on there. Save
Tyrrell
as your
Hatton's just
homepage.
made a birdie, which is an absolute disaster.
I will close it with an email we had from a listener on the podcast fairly recently. We're talking about great winners of the Open Championship. And the question, the title of the email was Tyrrell Hatton. The body of the email was, is a national embarrassment in the way he reacts, plays and interviews. Discuss, ? And I will leave that there for you two to close the pod and discuss that item.
We're going to do that now. Well,
Well, it
I think
feels
he's in it. We've all played with someone like that, but he's an imposition, isn't he? And he's the way that he reacts to shots is just so crazy.
Do you think he does it now as part of the act?
Maybe, yeah. It's
You know what I mean?
his
It's like
thing,
his
but
thing.
he's just so deep down a hole, isn't he?
He's just like. Thing is, he can't. I can't understand how he could possibly actually be that angry.
No,
You know,
I don't
he's-
think he is. It's the injustice of it that gets him, isn't it? You know, the fact that putt.
But it's almost as if like no other player is experiencing injustice.
Yeah,
It's like the world is taken
and
out.
he's
of him.
actually there's a world
What I
number
would
one
say-
inside him trying to get
Yeah,
out.
what I would say is he does tend to let it go after the frustration. He tends to let it go quite quickly.
Yeah, he does.
Like, if I was as angry as him, there is no way I could get around a golf course. Just
Yeah.
no way. I wouldn't be speaking to anybody. I'd be like, there's just no way I could do it. But
I think what we're dealing with here is just the sort of $1 million sportsman, $1 billion sportsman who
What
are
we're
just so
dealing with-
wrapped up in their own
what we're dealing
circle.
with is a load of golfers that in their life, and I think this is why it's going back to the bunker thing. Just to finish this off, the professional golfers are not used now to dealing with risk reward. They're used to dealing with reward,
Yeah, they want it to be controlled.
and they don't want risk.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is when they get into an issue that, I mean, like, what was it Bobby Jones said? Play as it lies. Just play as it lies. But we're about
We're
to
just
watch.
watching Tyrrell Hatton going berserk.
He's about to go berserk now, I think, on the 13th or whatever it is.
All right,
But
anyway, well, we're not hating Tyrrell Hatton, are we?
No,
we
no.
are a bit, but, just be nice if he could just,
Just smile.
yeah.
Well, so let's end it on that one. Are you going to say the magic words?
No, you are.
Adios.
Watch this.